Hey everyone, it's CL. Happy New Year. I am filming this on New Year, not quite sure when I will post it. I am taking today to pre-film some videos and to refilm some other videos that are now outdated because I did not edit them in time, but I am back from vacation and I am battling a sinus thing. So like right now I can't hear out of this ear here, and this ear, the hearing feels a little off as well. So if I sound weird, it is because I'm battling a sinus infection. But regardless of that, I feel really creative today and it's the new year, so I really want to hit the ground running and take hold of that creativity that I feel and just kind of get going on some projects. So for today's video, I have for you my Booktube Confessions, where I talk about the things about myself regarding Booktube and books in the community, and kind of put it out there for the public, you know, because these are mostly things that I tend to keep to myself, but now I'm gonna go ahead and confess them, get some things off my chest. Maybe some of you can relate, maybe some of you cannot relate and will judge me really negatively, but regardless, let's go ahead and get into it. So my first confession is that I do go off of book reviews. Now, I know that there are varying opinions, that people will be like, oh yeah, it's normal to go off book reviews, but then there's the other side of the coin where people are like, well, you shouldn't go off book reviews because it's just people's opinions and everybody has different tastes, and that is absolutely true as well. But I think of books like I think of movies. Like when I go see a movie, I absolutely will look up the movie on Flickster to see how people reviewed it, because that is going to determine to me whether I pay full movie theater price with like the reclining chairs and the popcorn and the drink, which can be pretty pricey, or whether I will rent it on iTunes, which is like $4.99, or whether I will wait for it to go in the red box, which is a little over $1. So depending on the movie review, it will determine how much I'm willing to invest financially in wanting to see that movie. Now, and I think of that the same way as books. Like going off the book reviews on like Goodreads or on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, that will determine whether or not I'm going to purchase that book at a retail shop for full price, like at a Barnes & Noble or off Amazon, or whether I am going to try to look for it at a discount location like a secondhand bookshop, or whether I'm gonna absolutely try to read it for free, like and try to find it at my library or do like an interlibrary loan. So yeah, I absolutely go off of book reviews. And my next confession is that when I read, there are still times where I encounter a word that I don't know the meaning. And I think this is perfectly fine. I think that I am not the only one that experiences this. And if you do experience this, absolutely do not feel bad about it. If you think about it, a lot of us out here have not encountered all of the words that are in the English dictionary, whatever the current dictionary is. It's not uncommon that you haven't come across many of the words that are out there in the dictionary, you know? So if I come across a word that I still don't understand, I do keep like a little notebook. It's probably like this big, very small, and I just write down the word and I will look it up later to kind of understand, like, what does this word mean? What does it mean in the context of this sentence that is being used in the story? So absolutely there are still words that I come across that I don't understand, and absolutely that is something you should not feel ashamed about if that is something that also happens to you. And my next confession is that I do, to an extent, filter my book reviews, and those are the reviews that I write out there on Goodreads. I don't always give a review, but when I do, to an extent, I filter what I write, because when it comes to a book that I really, really dislike, I can be really harsh with my review, my initial review. I can go on a total rant of why I didn't like this book. There have been a handful of books that I have read that I just absolutely hated to the extent where it made me angry. And one of the books that comes to mind is this book called Go the F to Sleep. And it was shopped around as like an adult style children's book. And I read this thankfully for free, because heck no, would I have paid retail price let alone any money whatsoever for this book. But I read it very quickly. I hated it so much. And my initial review, my first draft of this book review was like this long of what I disliked about it so much. And I sat on that review for like a couple days, and in the end I cut that review down to like one sentence. I don't know why. I decided to just filter it out to one sentence, and even that one sentence wasn't very nice, you know. But and not only can I be very harsh in my reviews, I can have like a really harsh reaction to what other people comment in the comments section of Goodreads. So for example, for that same book, one person, many people said many stupid things that I really held back and did not comment on. I just kind of read it. I had my own little rant going on internally and maybe a little bit externally that I wrote in my first draft of the review, which I decided not to publish. But there are just sometimes people will just make the most crazy comments that I just don't understand, and it makes me angry. So for this book that I was just talking about that I hated and I just thought it was a piece of crap, one of the people down below in the comments, I guess it was maybe their review, I don't know. They were saying, they said something to the extent, I don't know why this book isn't in every children's section of the library. And I apologize ahead if this sounds really harsh and something terrible to say, but when I read that why is this book not in every children's section of the library, my first reaction was, well, because it's not for children, you dumb bitch. Like that is just a snippet of what kind of rant I can go on, especially with books that I hate to the point where I get angry. And as far as my next confession, this one I'm curious about. Like, what do other people think, you know? And what I'm talking about is that when I see those book donation bins where I live right across the street from one, and a lot of times if the bin gets full, there's only one where I live, or where I live immediately, and sometimes the bin will get really full, so people will put their donations in boxes around the bin, and every time I pass by there, I always turn my head, and I'm always so tempted to go over there and like rummage through the books and like take the ones that I want, you know, because one, they'd be free, but at the same time I've never done that because I feel a little bit guilty that I would be stealing from charity, because right, is it the idea that those book donation bins, that the proceeds, a part of the proceeds would go to like charity? So I never do it, but I feel kind of like a terrible person because I want to, and I don't want to steal from charity, you know, because when it comes down to it, if a proceed of that money goes to charity, then absolutely I would want the charity to get it. But some of those donation bins, I'm not sure if they go to charity. Some of them don't have like any writing on it. It just says like booked donation or something. So I'm kind of curious if some of those bins it just belongs to some dude who's like reselling it on Amazon. I don't know. But the one that is across the street from me, it does say something to the extent that the proceeds will go to charity. So I feel a little bit guilty that the thought even crosses my mind that I want to go over there and rummage through the books to get free books. But I've never done it. But what do you guys think? As far as like morally speaking, would it be morally okay to like take some of those books, or would it not be okay because you'd be stealing from charity? I don't know the answer. I've never done it, and I probably won't. But yeah, just being tempted alone, I feel a little bit guilty about it. So my last confession is centering around that since we are part of the Booktube community, I think there's a fair share of us who has been approached by someone and that has asked us to please review their book. From as far as what I can tell from the people I have been approached by, they seem like they're new writers or someone who has newly finished a project and plans on self-publishing, but they're kind of getting a feel out there of what people like about it so they can kind of edit. That's my assumption. But absolutely, if I am approached by someone to review their book, I will 100% say no, I will decline, because I know what it's like to be a writer. I know what it's like to be rejected. I always say like, oh, I've never finished a book before. Technically, I have finished a children's book that I have shopped around. It has been rejected many times. There were a few bites, but in the end they said no thanks. Now, I have built up a tolerance for tough skin, not only with writing, but you know, I've had previous jobs where you've needed tough skin. So I know that part of writing is like getting rejected. That is just part of it, right? But say if you're a new writer, you just completed your first book, this is your first time you're asking for feedback, I absolutely do not want to be the person to issue you your first rejection, and this kind of goes back to my earlier confession that I can be a very harsh critic. If you ask me for my honest review, I will give you my honest review, and I'm not talented enough to spin it in a way where it sounds like a compliment, but I'm issuing you criticism. I'm not able to do that. I don't know how to do that. So my reviews will be very honest, and they might be harsh. You know, maybe I might end up liking your book, but just in case I end up not liking it, and if you're a first-time writer, first-time project, there's going to be errors in there and a lot of flaws. I do not want to be the person to extinguish your fire for writing. Absolutely not. And you might think, well, oh, in my mind, I think like, oh, this person doesn't want to write anymore because I issued them a harsh review. But who am I? I'm nobody, you know? I'm nobody. Just keep going through your rejections. But if you're a first-time writer, I fear that if I review them too harshly, that it might extinguish their fire for writing, and I absolutely do not want that on my conscience, so I will not review your books if you approach me. You know, it's one thing if I go to the library and pick up these books from people who are pretty seasoned in getting their books published, or I buy it from the retail shop. I absolutely have no qualms with giving them a harsh review if it comes down to that, but first-time writers absolutely do not want that on my conscience. But if you are a first-time writer and has not been rejected before, just know that just keep going, you know, you're gonna get rejected and eventually you'll get some bites. So yeah, I will not review your book. Sorry. So that is my Booktube Confessions. If you have a confession of your own, please leave it down below in the comments. And other than that, since I am back from vacationing to see my family, and I'm hoping that I can get over this sinus thing soon. If it doesn't clear up soon, I'm gonna go to the doctor, which I don't want to do because they always push drugs, you know, but sometimes you need that. I'm going to get back into reading and kind of start posting videos again of what I've been reading, what I plan on reading, and all that other stuff. So happy new year everyone, and I will see you later.